Hello, everybody. My name is Falguni, and I work as a qualified education counselor here at Aussie's Group, Adelaide branch. And today we're here with another live session for all of you and for all our lovely audience. Today we are going to cover the Masters of Business Administration program provided by Kaplan Business School. And if you're somebody who's looking into study this course, I would suggest you to come on board and have a quick chat with us. We're open to questions throughout the session, so please feel free to put any questions that you want to do. Today we have Neha with us representing Kaplan Business School. She's the Regional Manager, South Asian Market. Welcome, Neha.
Thanks, Falguni. Thank you for having us.
So without wasting any more time, we'll quickly start this session. We are going to cover quite different aspects of MBA program. So just stay with us throughout the session. So Neha, talking about the MBA program, there are a lot of providers available. So one general question that we usually have is, why should a student choose to study with Kaplan Business School?
Thanks for that question, Falguni. And if it's okay, I'd like to share some slides because that's a really great question. And I feel like a couple of visual aids will help me in giving this answer. So why should a student choose Kaplan Business School? So for anyone watching who's never heard of Kaplan Business School before, we are a higher education school that offer undergraduate and postgraduate level business courses in the fields of accounting, business analytics, and of course, as Falguni mentioned, MBA. Now, we're also part of the larger Kaplan family, which is Kaplan Inc., which is present in more than 30 different countries in the education space, recruiting more than 1 million students on a yearly basis. So for any student that's graduating from a Kaplan school, they are actually part of that global network. At Kaplan Business School, our focus is always on student support, and we do that through a few ways. Firstly, through smaller classroom sizes and a more nurturing environment, so students can get that one-on-one individual attention. Our lecturers are actually industry professionals, so they bring with them a wealth of experience into the classroom, kind of adding value to the whole education that the student gets. Apart from education, we also invest a lot in career support that we offer the students because we understand how important it is for a student to be employable at the end of their degree and start their career. So we give a lot of resources to students throughout their study from a careers point of view. And so those are some of the reasons why we would definitely advise students to choose Kaplan Business School, because we do invest a lot on supporting them as a school.
Definitely, Neha. I have a lot of students who feel like home when they're studying at Kaplan, so I couldn't agree more than that. Talking about what would be the locations where you have the campuses for the Kaplan Business School?
So Kaplan Business School actually has 5 campuses in Australia. Of course, the focus for the session, I understand, is Adelaide and Perth. But apart from that, we do have 3 other campuses, which include Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. And so we're geographically quite spread out. And so wherever students are based, we tend to have a campus over there.
How about we get a lot of students who want to internally do a transfer in terms of campus. So how friendly is Kaplan with that?
That's a great question, actually. One of the advantages of having campuses in 5 cities or locations is that students can easily transfer between campuses. So if a student has, for instance, started their degree in Sydney or Melbourne, but for whatever reason needs to move to Adelaide or Perth for professional or personal reasons, then they can very easily do that course transfer, the campus transfer, and then continue their degree from their new campus.
All right. And one question that I think a lot of students would be having in these COVID times, because the studies have been online. So how does the entire online studies process goes ahead? Considering the students who are stuck offshore, how friendly is these studies for them?
So online study has, of course, been a big focus area for us, especially because, as you mentioned, during the pandemic, there are lots of students who actually cannot physically come into the campus. So the online study becomes that much more relevant because it is the only students. The good thing or the good news is that even before the pandemic, we had experience in the online study area for about 7 years. So we were very familiar with the resources involved and the whole systems involved. For any student that wants to study online, they will pretty much have access to all our resources and facilities, which includes access to student experience officers who can help them with everyday questions, academic success center who can help them with any areas that they're finding difficult in their academics, subject forums, online libraries. So for students who actually cannot physically go into a library, they don't need to, because we do have online library where all the resources are easily available in a digital format. Career Central, as well as professional counselors. So any resource that we have available, we have made it available for students that are studying online.
All right. And just touching base a little about who all are eligible for the master's program, like how does the entry requirement works out?
So for any of our master's degree on our website, we have mentioned that they need an Australian bachelor degree equivalent or an associate degree with a few years of work experience. So that's from an academic standpoint. So and for English entry requirements, our requirement in IELTS is overall IELTS 6, minimum 5.5 in listening and reading, and 6 in writing and speaking. We have obviously other tests that we accept, including PTE, including TOEFL. So they can definitely kind of check whether they meet our eligibility from both an academic standpoint and an English entry requirement standpoint for the master's degrees.
Yeah, and also letting everybody know that, of course, this is very case-to-case specific, that anybody who does not have an English and, if you still are keen, there can be an internal placement test that is in place. Of course, it depends on what is your background. It is a subjective matter, but do we have like an internal placement test as well?
Absolutely. So for cases where the student, for whatever reason, is unable to attempt the IELTS or PTE or TOEFL, we do have an online placement test that we offer, which is referred to as GUIDE. But again, as you mentioned, it is dependent on a few factors. So it is case by case that we can offer that.
And just a little brief introduction about the PQP course that you have.
Yes, absolutely. So PQP is something that we, which is called Postgraduate Qualifying Program, is something that we introduced late last year. And it is designed for those students who want to undertake postgraduate study, but are unable to, mainly because they don't meet the academic entry requirements. So they kind of almost meet the academic entry requirements for doing a postgrad course, but they're kind of falling short. And so we designed this program that would act as a pathway into postgrad studies. So students are able to actually undertake study earlier than before, or in a manner that they couldn't before. So basically, any student that studies postgraduate qualifying program will then get, on successful completion, will then get entry into our graduate certificate course for any of our masters. And then which successful completion of the graduate certificate will then give them entry into the master's. So it is the pathway into, postgrad study that we offer. So for any students that don't directly meet the entry requirements for our MBA or any other master's degree, this is a good option.
Thank you, Neha. Just letting the audience know that we are open for any questions that you have. You can shoot all the questions in the comment box, and we'll be more than happy to address all of them. The next question that I have for you, Neha, how does the structure for this MBA looks like?
So the MBA is quite flexible in its structure. This is a 2-year degree that we have at Kaplan Business School. It is by far one of the more popular programs that we offer. We frequently get a lot of interest in this particular program. And there are, of course, several reasons for it, which we'll, can touch upon later. In terms of structure, it's a total of 12 subjects over 2 years. And so each trimester, because Kaplan Business School is a trimester-run school, we have 3 standard study periods, which is March, July, and November. And so in each trimester, a student basically just needs to study 2 subjects, which of course gives them a lot of flexibility, for professional reasons or other personal reasons. It's just 2 subjects each trimester. And another important thing is that in the MBA program, because we understand that students usually undertake MBA at a certain point in their career. And so we don't have final exams in the degree, but the way we actually teach students is through interactive case studies, through a lot of PowerPoint presentations, group discussions, anything that we feel would add value to the student generally, that once they graduate from the degree, they can use this knowledge in their real workplace. And it's not just a theory that they have learned. We try to change the model of exams.
Yeah, so it's basically more of an assessment and more of classroom studies and classroom interaction based studies that we
Absolutely.
can say.
Yes, absolutely. It's extremely practical, more than theory, this particular degree.
Now, I know, and I would like you to explain everybody how many specializations do we have for MBA, and how many specializations can a person take, and also the new specialization that you guys have introduced.
Sure. So we have a lot of specializations that we offer as part of the MBA degree. And one of the really good things about the MBA degree at Kaplan Business School is students can tailor their degree so that it suits their particular circumstance. So, we often get students from different disciplines opting for our MBA just for the specializations. So we have 8 specializations that we offer. We previously had 7, but as you mentioned, we've now actually introduced the 8th one. And the specializations range from project management, health services management, tourism and hospitality leadership, digital management, entrepreneurship, international leadership, and women in leadership. So it's quite diverse. And I always say this quite frequently, the MBA is not just for business students. It's not just a business degree that you need to have a business background to study. Students from any discipline can actually tap into the MBA because of our range of specializations. It can give students from any discipline management skills that they previously probably wouldn't get from their more technical degrees. So we do have a range of 8 specializations. And I purposely left this out because it is our newest specializations. I wanted to give it more focus. It is data-driven leadership. And the reason we add so many specializations to the MBA is because especially the data-driven leadership has become so relevant in today's time, the importance of data. And so for a fact, a lot of companies are looking for students or graduates who can come up with initiatives and control the data resources in their company, who have an understanding of how important data can be. And so the decision making is driven by data. It's more scientific. And so that's why we introduced the data-driven leadership specialization. And this is also as part of the MBA. Students can choose up to 2 specializations as part of their degree. And that's, of course, purely up to students because, as I mentioned, they can tailor the degree to what makes sense to their career and what can increase their career prospects. So we frequently get a lot of students coming from engineering background who wish to study project management, but they also want to have some experience or study in another area of maybe digital management. We get a lot of, nursing students, pharmaceutical students who want to study the management style. So they opt for health services management. And so like I mentioned, we can, students from different disciplines can actually opt for the MBA and, tailor their program to what makes sense to them.
Yep. I would quickly just ask you to walk us through about how does a student go ahead once they finish their MBA in terms of all the specializations? So if somebody opts for tourism and hospitality leadership, what would be the career outcome that they can expect out of? If you can just walk us through all the different specializations and their career outcomes as well. I know they are there on the slide, but just a quick one.
No, absolutely. And that's a really important one as well. I honestly feel that the career outcomes on the slides are just a few for each specialization. There are many, many more career outcomes.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, if I'm just talking about a student, for instance, a nursing student, who has already completed their nursing degree, is working as a nurse, but now wants to progress in their career, wants to kind of understand more the management side of things, how it works in clinics and hospitals, because it's very different, actually, and it's not something that you automatically understand. And so for any student who does the MBA Health Services Management, they can understand, once they complete this degree, some of their career outcomes can include a nursing manager, a practice manager, healthcare administrator. So it just opens up more doors of opportunity in your field. If I'm just giving an example, like you mentioned, a tourism and hospitality student, so somebody who's already done their bachelor in that area, or who's coming from a very different side of that, someone who's probably worked more in the logistics sides of it and now wants to understand the management side of it, they can then progress as a tourism executive, or hotel general manager, events planner. These, again, as I mentioned, they're very few career outcomes, but as you can see, it's quite diverse. So somebody who, who probably didn't have these opportunities available to them before because their previous degree and work experience was a little more restricted, once they do this MBA, can actually open up more opportunities for them.
Yeah. So basically, as we've discussed, it's just not limited to what we have on the slides right now. But
absolutely,
of course, you have more options available. But this is a very important thing in terms of when somebody wants to choose what career do they want to actually opt for. Knowing what would be the career outcomes after finishing your degree is a very crucial part.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely.
And so again, we have women in leadership, international leadership, entrepreneurship, and I think digital management has been one of the favorites these days.
Yeah, definitely. And as I see it, right, when I kind of look at the interest coming from students, what is particularly interesting for me is to see what was their previous background, to see, which kind of students are actually opting for digital management. And there isn't any particular trend. Students come from marketing background, they come from the IT background, they come from engineering background. So it's so interesting to see that digital management is an area becoming quite popular, and students from different backgrounds actually seeing the importance of education in that area, or some understanding of concepts in the digital management area.
Definitely. The next and the most important thing, which every student who comes up to us and wants to know, is the scholarships that are available. So can you just brief us more about how many scholarships are available, and what's just the generalized eligibility for the scholarships as well?
Absolutely. So scholarships is, of course, we understand it's a really important factor for all students when they're taking their decision to study. We have a range of scholarships that we have, which are mentioned on the screen. Starting off with, we have regional scholarships as well as high achiever scholarships. So this, I would say, range between 10 to 30%, these particular scholarships, and they're available for all our courses. It's not specific to any particular course. As long as a student has certain academic requirement and a certain English requirement. So if I'm just giving an example of high achiever scholarship, as the name suggests, if you have been a high achiever before with high academic scores, then definitely apply for this, and you could be eligible for a 30% high achiever scholarship. I would suggest any student who is interested in scholarship requirements to definitely get in touch with Aussie's group, who are quite familiar with a lot of our requirements, and so they can assist further. Yep. The next scholarship I'd like to talk about is the Frontline Healthcare Leadership Scholarship. This particular scholarship is specifically for our one degree, which is MBA specializing in health services management. So as I mentioned, the previous two scholarships, regional and high achiever, is more, depending on your previous academics, and it's open to any course. But this particular one, the Frontline Healthcare Leadership Scholarship, was introduced because we understand how important frontline health workers have been globally during the pandemic, how much they've contributed to, not just in Australia, but, all over the world. And so we wanted to create a scholarship specifically for them so that they find it easier to upskill. And that's why we created the Frontline Healthcare Leadership Scholarship. So any student who has basically been working as a frontline healthcare worker in, recent times, and is able to show evidence of it, they can definitely apply for this. It is a 50% scholarship, which is quite a generous one. into the MBA Health Services Management course. The online offshore fee reduction was basically introduced for our offshore students who are undertaking online study. So for the July intake, we are offering a 20% fee reduction for any student that is willing to study offshore online for the duration of their offshore online study. So as long as you're studying offshore and online, you will be eligible for the 20% fee reduction. There are certain terms and conditions attached to it. And then, of course, that is another thing that, Aussie's group can definitely explain to students with the T&Cs.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
What if somebody has opted for an online studies and they are offshore? Are they going to study 2 subjects per trimester, or can they go 1 subject per trimester, like an underload studies?
Students can put in a request for a reduced study load, definitely. There are students, we do have students who are happy to go in with a full-time study load just because it suits their particular professional or personal requirements. But we understand that there are also students who, want to take a reduced study load. So at the moment, it's a little more case by case where we allow the student to make that call and send in a request to us, using which we assess the situation and then give them the option of reduced study load. So it is definitely an option for offshore students.
Yep. And just letting everybody know, the Frontline Healthcare Leadership Scholarship, again, it's a very subjective matter. So just if we have anybody who's watching us who's keen to go ahead with the scholarship, we can always help you to see if you're eligible for that, because there are a lot of occupations that Kaplan Business School have added into the Frontline Healthcare Leadership Scholarship. So we can always have a quick chat about that. Apart from this, can you let us know what's the PQP scholarship?
Yeah, so the PQP is, as I mentioned before, this course itself is for any students who want to study postgrad but are unable to because they don't meet our academic entry requirements. For the July intake, any student that is starting PQP, it's actually free of cost. So they don't pay for the PQP component at all. It is 100% free fee waiver. They only pay for the graduate certificate and the master's degree. So it's a good pathway option for students to consider, and it's kind of, they're getting a scholarship for it as well. So this is specifically for our July intake.
No problem.
And lastly, just the new starter student support. This is part of our ongoing student support that we've been offering since the pandemic started, because we understand that students have been affected financially quite a bit because of the pandemic, whether it's reduced working hours, job losses. It's been a difficult situation and time. And so for July intake as well, any new student that is starting with Kaplan Business School on a full-time study load, and their scholarship amount is below 30%, they are eligible for a $500 new starter support for their first trimester. So whatever tuition fee they are meant to pay in July, they can just deduct $500 from that, because that will be contributed by the new student, the new starter student support. So yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much, Neha. I think that was a very useful because usually people, when they have to choose between different providers, scholarships, I think play a very important role, especially in these unprecedented times when, students really don't have a lot of jobs and they struggle a bit. Just letting everybody know that, again, the scholarships are subjective. So this was just a generalized little discussion that we had. But if, again, you want to see your eligibility, please don't hesitate. You can just get in touch with us and we can let you know what suits you best. The next quick one is, what are the, the next intakes available for the MBA program, and what are the yearly intakes with Kaplan?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, Kaplan Business School is a trimester-run school. So we have 3 standard intakes, and we've actually introduced a new fast-track intake from last year, which is T2X. So our July intake is actually still open for applications. So for any student who, are looking to apply at this stage, July applications are open. Following which we will have our September or T2X intake, And that intake, as I mentioned, is a fast track intake and meant for those students who couldn't start in July for whatever reason, but want to start their study before November, which is our T3 intake. So this is a good option. The intake T2X is just about 5 to 6 weeks, where students only need to study one subject, following which they will then get integrated into the November batch. And from there on, it will be a regular study load for upcoming trimesters. So I guess for students who are looking to study, we still have 3 intakes available for the rest of the year, which is July, T2X, which is September, and then trimester 3, which is November intake. The dates on the screen are orientation and start dates, but do get in touch with Aussie's group. The dates for application, deadlines, and others are also on our website.
No problem, Neha. Thank you for that. So anybody who's looking for the earliest intake, you know that they're still open for the July intake. If not July, you still have the option for September intake, where you start off with one subject. Just wrapping up this session, Neha, I know Kaplan has got a lot of awards. I want you to share that with the students so that, you know, they have a more clearer picture to why should they come and study with Kaplan.
Absolutely. And this is something I encourage all students to actually research and have a look at, because when you're choosing your degree and the school that you're studying with, it's important to have not just information that's relevant to that school, but also what are some of the global providers that are recognizing them. Specifically for our MBA, we were recognized in the 2020 Pioneer Awards as highly commended in the areas of progressive education delivery. And that's because we've kind of worked a lot on our MBA program and made it really relevant to students in the way we conducted, whether it's, the fact that the way we assess students is different, the kind of study load is different, the kind of specializations we offer, and, how we allow students to choose up to 2. It's quite progressive in nature, and that's why we were actually recommended. The kind of awards mentioned on the screen are the ones that we've globally been recognized. It's also available on our website. I would strongly encourage students to definitely do a bit of background check and, kind of look up these providers and these awards before you, choose Kaplan Business School.
Thank you so much, Neha. With this, we've come up to the end of the session today. I would highly encourage anybody who has missed the session or who has any other questions. We've attached a form in the description. So please feel free to get in touch with us, drop your queries, your questions, and we'll one of the team members would get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much, Neha. It was such an informative session. Thanks for taking our time and letting the audience know how important it is to have the right course that takes you to the right pathway.
Thank you so much, Falguni. Pleasure was all ours.